But if they don't take that next step to work on the business and to work on systems and everything, it will only ever be, the reach will only ever be who they can physically see and touch.
Yeah.
And we really believe in what we're doing, and we really think that lots more people can benefit from our products and our services and our way of doing business. And working on systems is the way that we're going to achieve that.
Hello, it's Dave from Systemology, and I'm shining a spotlight on some fantastic businesses, and we're talking about their systems journey. I'm here with Doug and Andrea from Sydney Strings Centre. I'll pop a link just near this interview, but maybe just to start, and I'm not sure who wants to chime in, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your business and what you guys do, and we can kind of go from there.
Great. So yeah, the Sydney String Centre is my family's business. Mum and Dad started it in our garage in 1991. So we're 32 years old this year. And we're a musical instrument business that specializes in the violin family. So we sell and make and repair and rent violins, violas, cellos, and double basses.
Yep.
And we do that from our location here in our showroom and workshop in Chatswood in Sydney.
Oh, very cool. And what size team do you have?
We've got, it fluctuates a little bit, but we've got about 40 people
Yeah.
all up, and that's a mix of full-time and some part-time employees as well.
Yeah.
Various different disciplines. So we've got salespeople, we've got musical instrument makers.
Yep.
They're called luthiers, violin makers. We've got people in purchasing and procurement, and we're like importing everything from single pieces that could be worth tens of thousands of dollars, right, to container loads of instruments that we have made for us with our partners overseas, China and Germany, and something the like. We've got people in admin positions. We've got 2 people doing e-com, and yeah, everything else in between. So it's a pretty big team.
Yeah, perfect. And are the parents still involved? Like, is it a true family business, or where are they now?
They're here. They're really happy. So I run the business with my 2 siblings, and my wife now as well, Andrea. And mum and dad come in, and they're happy to do the things that they love doing.
Yeah.
So that in the workshop, and my mum, in sales and helping customers. But they're happy not to be running it. So they're happy to hand that. They've well and truly handed that over to us, but you'll see them around the place.
Yeah, yeah. And you're like, do you see yourself as a systems person? Like, it sounds like business has kind of been in your family for a long time. I'm curious to know how you think about systems and process, if it's something you naturally do or something you're averse to doing.
No, I think the whole company really is interested in systems, and certainly in myself. So my journey into systems probably started with lean. I was really interested in making our own instruments here. And when we started looking into that, I thought, well, how are we going to do that and make it really cost effective? So I went down a journey into lean manufacturing.
Yeah,
That is not entirely, but quite heavily reliant on systems.
yeah,
Um, and then as the business started to grow, um, I was really lucky. Andrea was in consulting with a lot of other much bigger businesses. And at some point, it just sort of like the light clicked, and it's like, if you want to grow the business,
yeah,
um, you have to build that on systems. So we were sold on that pretty early on, and then it was just like, how do
yeah.
you do it? Yeah.
Um, be interested to know from your point of view, Andrea, because you've seen bigger business, there's difference obviously between bigger business and small business. And bigger business, it's much more established systems and processes that develop over time. How do you find that jump, and trying to think about what's critical, and how do you build a systems culture in a smaller team maybe than, the way that you've seen it in larger companies? I don't know if you've picked up any distinctions there.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my background's in design and innovation, so working with consulting with big companies on that. And when I came into the business, which was less than a year ago, it was interesting that everybody sort of, like big businesses in departments, everybody, they were doing their own things and they had their own processes, but it wasn't documented. If it was documented, it wasn't in a central place. And I think that does happen to a degree in big businesses, but sort of the big systems, like all the HR systems, obviously that's all centralized. And I think from both a small business and a large business, not having those systems and processes transparent really hinders collaboration. And that everybody is working in silos and they're not leveraging sort of the collective brain of the business.
Yeah. How, because you both have a background with systems then, with the Lean and also the work that you did, Andrea, with consulting, what was going on with you when you thought about or you came across Systemology? How did you come across that? And you already have a systems background. So I'm just curious to know through your thought process, like it sounds like you were sold on the idea of systems, but I'm just wondering what made you think, oh, okay, there's something here for us.
So we were talking, as we do all the time here, about where the business is going. We're a business that really has grown a lot. So it's like in 12 or 13 years, we've gone from 3 or 4 people to 40. So it's been like slow, steady growth, and there's sort of like milestones along the way. And we love being in the business, but we recognize now that we need to be able to step back and have more of a helicopter view of what's going on, and delegate well and trust people. We were thinking about opening in new locations or new business ventures, and we realized that we couldn't do that unless the business was highly systemized, like well and truly above and beyond the basic systems that we had in place. So that was like a light bulb moment. We realized that that needed to happen. And then we, I guess, went on a journey to try and find who we wanted to work with to be able to guide us through that. And interestingly, I did the Key Person of Influence program with Glenn Carlson. And I think I probably saw that episode, that podcast, and you did a similar interview with Glenn about it. And that must have stuck around in my mind. And then similar to one of the other interviews I heard, I think Systemology got recommended to me maybe on Audible or something like that. It just popped. So there were a few little things coming together. And I listened to that book first, and then I was talking to Andrea about how we could do something, and we investigated your method and a couple of others that were very systems focused, and we decided to go with yours. I mean, Andrea can explain probably a little bit better.
Yeah, in my background, I've done a lot of design research, and I think your approach most aligns with sort of the work that I've done. It's very human first. It's very like focused on the person and why they do things. It's very relational, as opposed to some of the other people that we were looking at who are it was very process and like more like what technology systems are you using, not so much how are you leveraging the expertise in the business. And we really liked that approach, and also the process of extracting and seeing it firsthand. Again, that goes hand in hand with Lean, but also with design research and the customer research that I've done. It's that you've got to go straight to the source and ask the questions and get the context and understand the why, as well as what good looks like. The how is sort of one way to look at it. At that point, we were really wanting to really jump to optimizing, but we knew that we couldn't do any of that until we had gotten sort of what we do now.
Yes, yeah. And so you come across the book, and then what made you think the group program, like there's like a couple of different ways that you can work, if it's direct with a systemologist or even do it yourself and drive it. Like, was there any particular thing that made you think the group program was a better fit for you?
Yeah, so Doug read the book, And then I read the book, and we're like, well, let's give it a shot. And this was probably this time last year, where we signed up to the do it yourself method, actually.
Yes.
And I started doing all of the BSA courses, and I got halfway through and I was like, okay, let's get started. And I was
Yeah.
like, how do I get started?
Yeah.
Blank sheet of paper. I'd tried to do a CCF. And I think at one point, the person that we were talking with at Systemology said, oh, I've actually got a cohort starting in January. I'll have James reach out to you. And at that stage, we're still like, oh, we've got this, we can do it. But then I had so many questions, and I was like, I don't know how to, like, where to start and where to feed the questions to. And speaking to James, I think it was just the reason why we decided to go with the Catalyst program is a couple of reasons. One is the accountability, sort of making sure that every fortnight you are progressing and you are making the most of the group and the feedback that James is giving you. But two, also, like, we probably could have worked it out ourselves, but just being able to refine quickly and being able to show someone what we've done quickly and get immediate feedback and improve. I reckon, we probably would have gotten to the same place in twice or three times as long without the Catalyst program.
Yeah.
And also being able to see other similar businesses in the same situation from all over the world, from all sorts of industries, and to know that we're all experiencing similar challenges was just also comforting to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
We decided we didn't want to go for the done for you version as well, because I think we felt we wanted to get our hands really dirty and get everybody involved so that it sticks. Because I have seen it a lot, and Andrea comes from a consulting background. Sadly, sometimes consultants can come in and make a big impact in a short amount of time, but if it doesn't stick, then it's not good in the long run.
I definitely feel the Catalyst program is probably the best value program that we've got for making permanent change, because you really start to develop the habits of consistently thinking about systems, keeping it front and center, finding systems, your systems champion, and all those sorts of things. As you went through the program, is there anything that stood out for you that were either aha moments or breakthroughs for you, like now that you've on the other side from it? I don't know if there's anything in particular that jumps out at you for learnings.
Yeah, for me, it was, if I think about where I started, and I'm a much more process-driven, organized, like, I like to see where I'm going kind of person, much more so than Doug is. But in my mind, I think when I first read the Systemology book, it was very much, okay, we're going to do one CCF, and then we're going to do the next CCF, and then we'll do the next CCF, and slowly and surely we'll get through everything. And what the biggest aha moment for me coming out of the program was that actually the first CCF is just how to almost like start a movement in your business. Like, you got to the end of the CCF, people started seeing what you were doing. And we had, I probably involved 5 key people in our first CCF. But actually, as a result of that, and I gave weekly updates as to how we were going. At the end of that, I've actually got people now coming to me and saying, I've done this. Is this a system? Can you help me turn this into a system? Or I'm about to do X, Y, Z. Do you want to come film me and you can document it? To even like in our daily morning meetings, someone's about to do training and like, be like, oh, let's video with this in case it can be a really good system, or it can be a tack onto that system. So it's really spun a life of its own, I think, in terms of helping people think about there's value in systems, there's value in extractions, there's value in documentation. So that was sort of one key thing of the whole program. In terms of like going in week to week, I would say for anybody who is hesitating about going to the Catalyst program, the coach, in our case James, was just phenomenal in terms of being able to help review our work, give us really good feedback, really pushed us a lot. And there were weeks where I progressed a lot, and there were weeks where I felt like I took 2 steps back. But it was just having that like hard conversations and being upfront. And as he said, it was really just building that muscle. And I really felt like coming out of that 6 months, I've built this muscle.
It's it gets progressively more challenging to build a systems culture the larger the team that you've got. I don't know if you've got any thoughts or insight on that, thinking about when you started, like you already had a good sized team, and I don't know if there's anything that you picked up along the way, because it sounds like you've really started to build a culture, and then some people are catching on and now they're bringing things to you, which is all part of this idea of this is the way that we do things here, and building the culture, which is what makes it stick. Have you got any insights on how that happened, or some of the challenges maybe that you overcome going through that? If there were resistance at the start?
I think we had some resistance from a couple of staff members to begin with, but I think it was purely just they didn't understand what it was. So being able to show work in progress, showing just even week to week the homework that I was doing, being able to actually show that to the group and get feedback.
There's a whole week in the program where we focus on communicating the message to the team and getting that out there, and that was very helpful as well. Like sometimes it feels like, because when you're already sold yourself, you forget that not everybody is on the same page as you, because not everyone's read the book. And we did actually get a few people to read the book. That helped a lot. It's like there were a few people who straight away put their hand up. They're like, I love this. I just want to be involved. Kind of, can I be involved? And then, yeah, there were a few others, maybe not so, but no one was really, we've been through this on our lean journey already. And we found that through that process, the people who weren't aligned with the way that we wanted the business to run had probably already left the business. And when we were hiring, we've been hiring people that understand that they need to love what we do. Like, who doesn't want to work in a business where they love what they do? And everyone here loves music, and they love violins, and they love helping people learn music and all of those things. But to find people who are like that and also understand that it's a business, it needs to run in a certain way, a lot of moving parts, and everyone has a part to play. So, yeah.
And I think something that you say over and over again is not focusing on why the business needs this, but focusing on why it's important to our people, how it makes their lives easier, and sort of the added benefit to them. And we've seen that a lot in, especially because we're growing, we're growing the team, so there are people coming in. So framing it as it's easier to train, people going on leave. We've had quite a few people on leave for extended periods of time, and we've used those opportunities to do the extractions and documents so that when they're away, it's the work isn't just lumped on the one person, but it could be spread out to several people just to make lives easier.
Yeah. You mentioned, Ian, it's obviously popped up a couple of times, Doug, around lean. I don't know if you've got any insights around the differences in the methodology, because I do feel, and obviously I'm biased, so I feel Systemology has a unique way in the way it approaches process, and a big part of that is I haven't had experience like went before Systemology around lean and Six Sigma and some of that type of thinking. So it was a fresh approach to a long-standing challenge that a lot of small business owners have. I'd be curious to know what differences that you see in the approach, or how it worked.
Yep. So the Six Sigma thing, I'm not a big fan of it. It doesn't not applicable for our business. Lean, I feel like Systemology like fits in really well as a part of like a broader lean journey that maybe somebody might be on. Lean, so there are things that are very much aligned, So a key lean principle is to go and see things. So rather than sitting around in an office talking about how things could be or how they were or how it was in that instance, the idea is to actually go and see what's going on and how it is happening currently, and to see what you can learn from that. So that, I think, is really aligned with the first step that you have to take in the systemology journey, which is actually to go and see how a process happens and to document it. Lean is really big on continuous improvement, which comes after the documenting and developing systems culture. So I think a lot of people start their lean journey as we did, and we're very focused on continuous improvement. Like, we have a group chat in the business with everybody in it, and everybody is posting little improvements that they're doing every day to either a process or a physical place or a digital process or whatever. And I think, and the idea behind that is if everybody is producing just one small improvement every day, and there's 40 people in here, and then you time that 40 by 5 days in a week and 52 weeks in a year, then the business itself gets better. But it's easy to get carried away with that and forget that has to be the improvements should be building on something. And so I think Systemology has helped us, especially those in the business who are really big on lean from a that's like Kaizen, continuous improvement perspective, to go, okay, before we get carried away with that, let's just have a look at how things are done now, document that, and then once that is the standard, then we can improve on that. So I think it actually complements a small business's lean journey. I'm not talking about like lean comes from the Toyota production system, and it's just a huge multinational kind of company. It's like it's different applying lean to a small business. So that's the way I think about it. It's like they're different, but they can complement each other. And I could see how somebody could get stuck on a lean journey, and that this could actually really help them to progress further with that.
Pairing systemology and lean like really helps you to focus on those improvements. So yes, we do set targets every week to try and see how many, like I said, let's try to get to 50 today. And sometimes they are little ones, just around creating a new checklist at the front counter to make it easier for showroom staff to relay information to customers. And I know from your point of view, that is a system. But if we're thinking about those big systems, it just allows us to focus on, okay, if we're doing this improvement, is this improvement just like a little system? Or is it going to be so momentous that we need to think about updating the systems we've documented, and goes into well, who owns that, and how do we get approvals, and how do we get feedback? And like, I think it changes those improvements into something a lot more influential, has a lot more impact on the business.
Lean is also quite firmly based in the elimination of waste, or what they call waste.
Yes.
And there's 8 different wastes, and on your lean journey, the hardest thing is to see the waste. And if you really have a good system, if you've got everything documented really well, you should be able to look at that system and go, okay, that part of it, that is waste, and we can eliminate, we can improve that or reduce that, whatever. But if you're just trying to do it willy-nilly, it's very hard to see that. So that's another thing I think that I believe, as we move forward and get more things documented, that it will help us with that as well, the way that we see process and see waste.
Definitely, I think Systemology was designed with small business in mind. Like you said, lean thinking, it came out of Toyota world. And the biggest thing that a lot of small business owners struggle with is just repeatability. And you can get tremendous wins just by making things consistently repeatable. And what's unique in the way that Systemology works is we leave optimization towards the end. That's once you capture that and it's consistent, you got a baseline. Well, now we can start to look to eliminate waste because we know what we're doing and we're all doing the same thing. I'm curious, like some of these ideas as well. I was going to check, Andrea, were you the systems champion, or like who drove? Okay, so
And so Doug actually brought me on after some time of convincing, and I came on purely as a systems champion. As most small businesses, time is being chipped away, and I've been involved in other parts of the business, but still my sort of core role is to think about myself as the systems champion.
I think the point is like we're all really busy, and like coming back to the KPI program that you do as well, you end up being really busy. If you do a good job with marketing, like incoming business is not a problem for us. We've got more than we can cope with. So once that's happening, it's hard because to grow again and to deal with all this incoming business that you want to be able to, you need good systems. So, and it's hard to cordon off somebody's time and say, hey, you, I don't know, sales manager or workshop manager or whoever, your job is now 50% going to be, involved with this. So I recognized pretty early on that there's no way, and I'm as the sort of the owner of the one of the owners of the business, really busy as well, can see the value, but not a lot of time. So, so we brought Andrea. I convinced Andrea to come join the business because Andrea's got a very unique way of looking at things, and I just knew that this would work. Also, that it wasn't likely, at least at the beginning, to get pulled into many other things and could solely focus on that. And I think if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have made the progress so quickly. It costs something to do this, but it pays back in droves. So what you've got set up to have a systems champion is absolutely essential, and for that person not to be the business owner, it's absolutely essential. But who to do that, I think, is a real discussion that you have to have. If it's a small business, you consider, I think, actually getting somebody in, or reallocating somebody's role so that they've got it for a 6-month period or 12-month period.
Yeah, and we talked about like, now that we're along the journey and there's momentum, is it time to hire someone else, whether it be offshore, onshore, whoever it is, to continue it? But I had said to Doug, like, I've been around the business for a long time, obviously, being part of the family. But having officially joined the business, it's actually the best way to get to know every part of the business well.
Yes.
And there is no other way that I could have so quickly learned the business as well as I did by just being there and watching and filming and thinking deeply about the processes.
I've been thinking a lot about the systems champion because I feel that they are the leverage point. Like when I look at all the businesses we've worked with, the ones that have really gone off like a rocket ship are the ones that have got the systems champion. I think it's incredibly astute that you identified a highly skilled team member who's got capacity to go into this role, because by doing that, you're sending a message to the team that this is important and that you really want to put your best minds on this, because it's about capturing that best practice, which is effectively like a habit. A system for me is a documented habit. And we use that to transfer it to newer, less skilled team members as a way for them to, they follow the process until it becomes a habit that they just do naturally, and not something they necessarily have to think about. So I think this idea of the systems champion, and you guys are an absolute prime example of this, of getting the right person into the place and then recognizing the ROI on that. Because I think where a lot of small businesses struggle is because they haven't seen the efficiency improvements that it can deliver. It's very hard for a lot of them to justify the cost, and then they try and go, oh, well, let's offshore this or get less skilled labor that might be lower cost, because they struggle to try and think about, well, can I have a whole person devoted to this particular role? I don't know if you can speak to anything like that, and maybe it's something to do with your process background that enabled you to kind of, or maybe the size of the team at the time, but obviously you threw your hat over the fence and you put a highly skilled team member into that role? I'd love it. Yeah, if you can speak to that.
Like as a business owner, how badly do you want to be able to step back and work on the business? Like, and work on things that really, one of the reasons, so we wanted to grow, but we also wanted to, if we're going to be in this business for the rest of our careers, we want to work on things that we really love.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I could do, but I don't love doing.
Mm.
If we've got a good system in place, we can get anybody to come in and do that. So as a business owner, how badly do you want to be able to be in that position? And if it's really bad, then you've got to put some money behind it and hire the right person to be able to do it. But it doesn't have to be a highly paid consultant or whatever to come in, and you can still use your team members, but you've got to give them time. It's not like if you said it's going to be 10% of your time, they really need to dedicate almost their whole job, I think, for a period of time to really make progress quickly. Once you get stuck into it, it's never ending. I think there's just, you never really stop. But I think it can also be a great learning opportunity and professional development opportunity for whoever you put into that role. If you find the right person that really enjoys it, that doesn't loathe it, but actually really, really loves it, it can be a really great motivator for them and for them to then find,
I think also we went into Systemology with a focus of growth in mind and wanting to use it as like, how do we seed more opportunities for growth, whether it be because we wanted to pull you out of the day-to-day so that we could work on other projects. But I think also because of our lean mentality, and also probably a bit influenced by my background in innovation, is going into the different systems in the different parts of the business. It's also allowed us to see new opportunities and new efficiencies. So, with the workshop, it's like, well, some people might be really tempted to come in, document their processes, and it's a bit of like okay, done, put that aside, next thing. But I think we really used it to say, oh, you guys are doing it this way, and you're tacking, and once it goes there, it goes to the showroom. Have you guys talked about how we could innovate in this space and actually think of a new service we might be producing? So it's actually created sort of new ideas in our business as well, just by thinking differently about each of the departments.
I know a lot of business owners that are watching this are going to be thinking, well, how do I find my Andrea? Where's my systems champion? And one thing we've identified, and you hinted at it before, it's almost like this idea of an apprenticeship. One thing, a couple of systems champions that we've seen that have done really well, it's the junior accountant. It's the junior person in the workshop who might want to make this an industry for themselves. And what better gift could you give them than the chance to work closely with the higher skilled team members to capture what it is that they're doing and imprint the systems thinking in their mind early. I'm wondering, with just that thought and thinking about your own skills, Andrea, and maybe Doug, like, what are the qualities or the attributes do you think that would make a great systems champion?
It's a good question. I think by nature, I've always been I'm comfortable with chaos, but I'm an arranger. I like to take things apart and put it back in a way that makes sense to me.
You've also come from an information design background.
Yes.
So Andrea's job, one of your many jobs that you had in your past, was taking very complex ideas and visually arranging that information so that it's understandable by a regular person or a board member or something, and so that, I think, has helped a lot with you.
Yeah, so I think that from getting into the systems champion mindset, you've got to be comfortable with a bit of ambiguity and chaos, and you've got to have the desire to want to pull that into something that you can work with. I think that's one. Because I think at the beginning it's very overwhelming until you figured out your way of working with Systemology. I'd say how we've taken it on board and run with it in our business is probably quite different to how each of the other people in our cohort of the Catalyst program has done.
Yeah.
So that's sort of as a mindset. But yes, then in terms of the extractions, in terms of the documentation, coming from my design research background, it's all about having the empathy, really wanting to understand why people do it that way, and having the ability to ask good questions. And I think you can learn that.
Yeah.
In that documentation area, it's about learning a little bit about information design and how do you make things understood. It's one thing with the content, and I think AI, and I've attended your ChatGPT masterclass,
Yes.
which has changed my life.
Yes.
Is helpful, but again, how do you then present that as information so it's really easy for your staff to read and consume? And knowing how your staff will consume that information will help you do that. But even James gave us a lot of pointers around like big headings and bullet points and like stuff like that. That came quite natural to me. But I'd say, if you were used to working with like academia, for example, that's a very different type of writing style. So it's learning the differences between how content and the way that content is visually presented can also help with the consumption of and ease of understanding of a system in a business.
I'm trying to think of the other people that we've got involved now, and it's like hunt down the person with the cleanest desk and start there.
Love it.
True.
Yeah.
So true. Like if I think about the people who are involved, they're naturally very they like things in a certain order, and they have a certain way of, they're very like neat and orderly. That's just maybe a starting point.
Yeah.
I like your point about there's a real human element. And if you're doing the extraction, you are observing the way they do it, but and this is from your design research background, you are asking a lot of questions along the way, probably more than what James was comfortable with. James is always like,
he doesn't like when I ask questions.
Just observe. But it was quite interesting, if you're naturally inquisitive and you're asking questions about why someone is doing that, that can actually help when you're designing the system as well, to understand like they're doing this, but also to understand why they're doing it.
And I think that also comes down to leveraging the knowledge in the business and going back to the systems culture. Then people realize you're really interested in their work, and that they're seen.
They are seen. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's been a lot of that, I think, as well, and a lot more awareness of other people's like, people in the workshop a bit more aware of what's going in the showroom, and vice versa, because everything's like laid out, and there's like aha moments where they're like, oh, that's why I've got that problem, because that's the way it's being done at the moment. That's when we start to get into the improvements.
And actually in the workshop space, we've started using the systems we've documented to work with our suppliers as well.
So this is actually really interesting. So over the last 3 years, even before Systemology, we were trying to eliminate waste from a process that we've got, which is very labor intensive. It's what we call the setup. So for all the violins and things that you see there, we've got to cut bridges and sound processes, some very complex parts. And we were having a lot of trouble with our suppliers in China. We worked on making the process simpler here. We couldn't get over there during COVID. And then having made the process simpler, then we documented the process and then used that documentation and sent some of my team over to China this year to train half a dozen people over there in the methodology there. So that's been quite interesting as well. Going further upstream and saying, like we've got this process now. We've improved it to we're happy, it's stable, and now that was a real test, wasn't it? Like,
and it wasn't the whole system. Like the way that we wrote the system is that there are stages, and that we identify maybe this stage can be done by this person, and even at a training point of view. So it was, I think definitely key in being able to articulate that to our suppliers.
I'm so fascinated by this and the application of it, and then the ripple effect that it has, and how it's touching all team members and different aspects of the business. You're on this journey now, and that ripple effect, like we jump forward 5-10 years, like we can only imagine the impact it'll have on the business at that point in time. But now that you've come to the end of the Catalyst program, now the real work starts, because you kind of get a little bit of a crutch as you go through, because you've got that every 2-week meeting with James, and that makes sure that you get the momentum. But I don't know if you could speak to the wins that you got by going through that program, or the impact, or even a story or something that's popped up where you kind of like, oh, that just illustrates the benefit of us going through this program.
I definitely think working with China is one of those key things.
Already I've been able to, I mean, this coincided with us hiring a few different people and reorganizing a few of the key people in the business into slightly different roles, including promotions and things. Um, it's taken months, but I can honestly say that I'm not needed as much already.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can give like specific examples. Or, well, I mean, just yeah, on a typical day now, I'm really not having to do a lot of the tasks that are happening day to day. I am having, like, it's given me, for sure, it's
I'd
given me
say
time.
you've probably mentioned a couple of times that it used to be on a Saturday. You would have to be on the showroom floor, you know, be present. And I think a combination of getting the right management and leadership, but with the systems, it's meant that you can be here, but you don't have to be on the front line, and you can be working on other parts of the business.
There's definitely that's like one of the early indications, once you really start to get that momentum that shows up, and then that space even increases. Like you'll be able to remove yourself, and then it's funny. It's different for different business owners. I've seen some business owners at that point in time, they just go, "Oh, that's a nice little business, can run over themselves," and then they find something else for themselves to work on. Maybe there's a new business or a sub business or something like that, and then you go off and kind of work on that. So it's kind of this journey. Now, like, I don't know, sort of in the final part of this, I'd love to kind of speak just a little bit to the program itself with James, and you know, the value for money, or the what you got from it. Like, if a business owner is thinking about it, there's not too many places that you can go to learn this stuff. I actually don't know of anywhere, like, we're the world's first training specifically for systems champions. But working also with the business owner and helping them to understand, so they can be the leader and then empower the systems champion in front of the organization to say this is important. I don't know if either you've come across anything else, or if you could speak specifically to this particular program and what you got from it.
I'm just thinking, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about what it's like to learn a musical instrument. And you know, you could go on YouTube and Google like how to play the cello or something, and you could kind of understand it. And there are hundreds of method books for how to do it. You know, everyone's got a different, and you can read that and you can understand the words. But there's nothing like having a lesson with a really good teacher, and really being coached through that, and then going home and doing your homework with practice for music, and doing it and repeating it and getting better and flexing those muscles, and then coming back for like, just that really works. And at the end of the day, like, it's cheap for what you get out of it, actually, I think. Like,
Yeah.
it might be, if you're in startup mode, or if you've fallen on hard times, you might look at that and think, oh, that's actually quite, can I afford to do that? But it's more of a question for us of like, for me, it was easily seen by us as an investment, out of which we got really great value. I think it's that accountability, all of those things that
I feel like if I had to do this on my own in a DIY, I'm someone who likes to work with someone, bounce ideas back and forth. Like, that's how I work, and that's how we certainly work. But in the systems champion space, you know, the idea was to pull Doug out of the weeds. So it wasn't appropriate for us to be doing that. So having James there was amazing. And I'd say for the price of the Catalyst program, even though it was in a cohort and that we met every 2 weeks and there were 15 to 20 people there, I actually felt like a one-on-one coaching session with James, because he was very dedicated in giving you individual feedback through sort of the video casts, screencasts,
that
and
is
it
true.
felt very targeted and not just here's the general feedback we're going to give and you can figure out what that means for you. It was the feedback based on your work. And so the more that you put into the program, definitely the more you get back. And I felt like because I had the time and I was dedicated to this, I definitely got sort of maximum value out of it.
Yeah, I think it's as much and as little as you want to get out of it. So
Yeah.
if we or Andrea really put a lot of effort into the homework and really did everything that James at the beginning probably would have liked to have done more even. I think it felt a little bit of a slow start, but I think that's because you and I had already been into it for 3 or 4 months, whereas it was brand new for everybody else. But there's the opportunity to record things and post them to the group.
Yep.
And we could see that, and Andrea was usually first cab off the rank, posting things week in, week out. And so but we could see that a lot of other people we're just sort of used to that sort of iterative, just put it out there, like done better
Doesn't have to be perfect.
Done better than perfect is our philosophy. So put it out there, and we could see that a lot of other people were viewing them and getting some value out of that.
But also the other participants who were with us, like the more they put out, the more I was learning as well, because I could see different styles, different approaches. It allowed me to refine that as well. So again, because people are in different industries, they've got different criteria, they're in different contexts. And so you're sort of like, we had our blinkers on because it's a way that I was going to do it, but being able to see how other people have done it with James's immediate feedback just allowed you to have that, like, oh, I might just try it this way this time because it looks kind of cool. And does that work? James, what do you think? And so being able to have those conversations was cool.
It's you're on the journey to develop what I call the master skill of business. Like if you can develop effective business systems, that ultimately is the master skill, because you're capturing the way that something is done and then you're making it transferable. So that way it can be done without key person dependency, without relying.
So it's like in our industry, in musical instruments or music teaching or whatever, everyone is passionate about it actually. And people often think that passion trumps everything, but it really only gets you to a certain point. I think there's plenty of people in our industry that are really passionate about what they do. But if they don't take that next step to work on the business and to work on systems and everything, the reach will only ever be who they can physically see and touch. And we really believe in what we're doing, and we really think that lots more people can benefit from our products and our services and our way of doing business. And working on systems is the way that we're going to achieve that.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, so thank you so much for indulging me. I don't know if it's just as enjoyable for you as it is for me, but just hearing this, I know it's going to inspire other business owners in similar situations. The way that you're able to articulate it, and there's so many insights that you shared all the way through. Yeah, just want to say a huge thank you for being just a great example for building a systems-driven company and making it accessible for other people, like just so real and honest. And I absolutely loved it. I'll let you have the final word, and then I'll make sure I pop a link over to the Sydney Strings Centre. So if anybody wants to get their violins or get into your world and see what a systems-driven company looks like, they'll be able to find you. But yeah, I don't know if there's any final things you'd like to add on.
No, I think we've said most things, but seriously, if anybody is into, we do, because people find what we do very interesting, and we really are, making things here, and we do give little tours of our workshop, and you'll see a lot of the systems here, like in action. So if anybody's, even remotely curious and in Sydney and they want to come down and see us and chat with us, then they're always welcome.
And as the systems champion, if you're hesitating, just go for it, like trust the process. We really enjoyed it and got heaps out of it. So just do it.
Thank you, guys.